What is the global mission of UNESCO?
Work through education, culture, communication and information, and social and human sciences and science. We still celebrate philosophy. We have a philosophy day. You see,
Really?
It's very special, yes.
What are the current priorities of UNESCO here in Uzbekistan?
So it means an entire historic center is World Heritage Site. It's not an easy job, because the value of these cities, the value of a city like Bukhara, it's that it has been a city alive for centuries.
Why preserving culture is important?
Culture is a very political subject.
So thank you for coming and joining us for this interview. I'm going to start by asking about what is the global mission of UNESCO?
UNESCO's global mission is building peace in the minds of men and women. So that's our global mission. And to do so, we work through education, culture, communication and information, and social and human sciences and science program. So we have all these programs globally. Of course, what we do in the field of culture is known the most globally because of our flagship convention, World Heritage Convention, which is almost everyone in the world knows a UNESCO World Heritage Site,
yes,
for example. But also we do work in education, and from preschool education to higher education to specialized education, which is skills development. So we have an overview of an entire education sector, which helps us to do better what we do when we choose to work in a specific area in education. Even if it's a specific area, because we have an overview of an entire education sector, we can do it better. Social and human sciences, I can mention a couple of our flagship programs. For example, UNESCO's launched a program on developing ethics of artificial intelligence. And so we have recommendations, yes.
Is it together with the European Union?
No, it's a UNESCO. It's a global. It's the first global, actually, intergovernmental of this kind globally. Actually, Uzbekistan is a champion for us, because Uzbekistan launched the UNESCO Biruni Prize. Army is planning to launch UNESCO Al-Biruni Prize for Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. So, so this is recommendations that countries are invited to actually agree to, and then and hopefully in Samarkand in 2025, Uzbekistan will launch. Uzbekistan and UNESCO will launch the Al-Biruni Prize for Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. So that's about our SHS social, an example of what we do in social and human sciences. We are an international organization, intergovernmental organization, that we still celebrate philosophy. We have a philosophy day. You see,
Really?
It's very special. Yes,
yes.
This is our. Still, the most famous philosophers in the world are invited to UNESCO platforms, and using UNESCO platforms to talk to people, because the value of these things, unfortunately, or at least in the quick social media, is reducing. But to the value of thinking deeper on social sciences and humanities.
I agree with you. It's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an example of what we do in social science. In science, our flagship programs are water management, management of glaciers. UNESCO coordinates the World Water Report, which is a report actually issued by the entire United Nations agencies. We collect all together, but UNESCO is the secretariat of it. We coordinate the World Water Report, for example. That's a flagship program of our science sector. About as culture, as I mentioned, culture, we have several culture conventions. That's the most known ones, from World Heritage Convention to Intangible Heritage Convention to diversity of cultural expressions. And And for education, we do, for example, with Uzbekistan, we organized in 2022 the Global Conference on Preschool Education, preschool, early childhood care and education. That was the name of the conference. That happens every 10 years. So the one in 2022 was organized in Uzbekistan. It was an actually initiative of Uzbekistan. I think we welcomed around 50 ministers and deputy ministers from across the world, and 3 heads of states, if I'm not mistaken. So that's our education. So early childhood, for public education, mostly teacher training, because our sister agency UNICEF also works in education. So at least in some countries we have a division of labor that we work mostly with teachers and teachers' curriculum, and less with the textbooks and students' textbooks. We work in higher education on also standard setting. UNESCO has a convention for recognition of qualification of higher education. That means that actually Uzbekistan is following up the signing of this convention, and because since I think the preparatory work is ongoing. So it's a convention that launched recently, if I'm not mistaken. It was in 2023 when the convention, once it starts, it's launched when a certain number of countries actually signed the convention. So that I think we needed 20 to start. And Uzbekistan, if goes ahead, it will be the first Central Asian country. And that means that all the countries that agreed to this convention, then their qualification of higher education they will recognize each other qualification of higher education.
Nice.
So a degree from Uzbekistan, once signed, will be accepted, for example, in Japan. It's also a signatory of this convention.
So we talked about the global mission of UNESCO, in general, and can you tell me what are the current priorities of UNESCO here in Uzbekistan? And you can also name some of the most influential projects you guys have here.
In culture, our main role currently is an advisory role to the government on preservation of cultural heritage, as well as capacity building. So Uzbekistan is almost a middle-income country. Its ambition is to become a higher middle-income country. So does not need us to do the actual work of restoration of historical sites, or to do the works. In some countries, UNESCO does carry out major culture projects, major restorations. For example, a flagship initiative of UNESCO is a Mosul initiative, which was restoration and reconstruction of cultural heritage of Mosul after Daesh, right? So I mean, in countries that they need, UNESCO does that. But Uzbekistan is not a country that needs that, because the government is very well capable to do that. So here, our roles are first, advisory role. It means that bringing international expertise and international experts and standards, and to advise the government on how to do preservation of cultural heritage and restoration of cultural heritage. Or capacity building. That's an area Uzbekistan needs our assistance to train. And when I say train, it doesn't mean 2 weeks workshops. Really train people who have a master degree in restoration of cultural heritage, people who have a bachelor degree in museum management, for example, areas like that. So this is an area Uzbekistan needs, because it has the number of, considering the number of cultural heritage sites it has, and also the fact that actually 4 of Uzbekistan World Heritage Sites are 4 cities. So it means an entire historic center is a World Heritage Site. It's not an easy job for no one, including, for European countries that they've been doing it, started first, for example, on keeping an entire historic city historic, and keep it intact, its integrity, how it was, but also a city for people to live in, because you don't want to musify cities. You don't want cities to become a museum. You want Because the value of these cities, the value of a city like Bukhara, it's that it has been a city alive for centuries. And also its elements stayed, you know, as it is. Uzbekistan has many World Heritage sites, and also they're massive in terms of restoration, and the needs are massive in terms of restoration, management, and preservation. Because if it was just a couple of monuments, that's much easier. But when you have to keep a city intact, it's a difficult job. So this is an area where government needs international organization like UNESCO to provide assistance to build the capacity of its human capital.
So when talking about UNESCO, I think one of the first things that come to a person's mind is culture, right? And you said culture is like a flagship of UNESCO as well. Can you tell me why preserving culture is important? I mean, it seems like a very simple question, but kind of difficult to answer.
In intellectual discussion, everyone agrees that culture is important to preserve. Yes. When it goes to actual preservation, that's not as easy, because then usually culture, people think, stays in the way of, especially the built heritage, the sites and monuments. People think it stays in the way of development. But culture, it's very important for the governments and people too. So it's not just an intellectual discussion. It's very much attached to their national identity, to people's national identity, and a government, actually, at least what governments that we have now, nation states, they built the state around nation, which is, well, has to have a national identity, and it's actually culture is a very political subject. Yes. And UNESCO's member states are aware of that. That's why they came together, and then we have this World Heritage Convention, which is protection of World Heritage sites. So how do I say it? We don't even need to convince anyone that culture is important, because the governments, they know that, people, they know that. It's just that the actual preservation that becomes it's complicated. So when you ask me why it's important, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind for governments and for people is their national identity. But also in a global point of view, the World Heritage Convention talks about the cultural heritage of humanity. So it means that if a word is a site is inscribed on that list, it's important for the entire humanity, not just for Uzbekistan, because that's our collective. For example, Registan is our collective pride of what humankind has achieved in its history. It's like something that. So I wanted to move beyond just the value of culture for national identity. The value of, for example, Timurid monuments and Timurid cities in Uzbekistan for the national identity of Uzbekistan, which is attached to the Timurid dynasty, right? But I want to say also that is important for globally for the entire humankind history, because we have an expert who says it. I repeat from him. We have a Timurid expert who says that humankind has not moved much beyond what it achieved during Timurid time in architecture. So it's these are heights of civilizations, of humankind. So that's why it's important.